Izuku Midoriya's life is a lot different than anyone else's. And the reason why is because he was never given a quirk. He was actually full-on quirkless. So when at a young age he realized that the chances of him being a hero, well, they're pretty damn low. And yeah, that would mess up some kids, that would mess up the mind of others, but when he learned about this, when he figured this out, one day he would realize that maybe he doesn't want to be a hero. Maybe he doesn't want to be the hero that people are all talking about. Maybe he doesn't want to be the run-of-the-mill typical hero that everybody says that everybody wants to be. And he realizes there's so much more for him to do outside of just being that quote-unquote hero. So what does he do? Well, he starts looking at other ways to make money, other ways to do things, and other ways to get a grasp on the situation. But eventually, he would see something on the screen. On his TV, he would see pro wrestling, professional entertainment wrestling. And this is when he would realize that this might be exactly what he wants to do. He starts going to these little camps, like, of these various things for pro wrestlers, and he is a very quick study. He starts learning things at a rapid rate. At such a young age, Izuku is already like a master of so many different arts of the professional wrestling game, and so much so that he starts to fall in love with it. I mean, at a young age, he's legitimately putting on shows from the age of around 10 to 12. He's putting on full-on shows, showing off what he can do, and being this kind of crazy athlete that everybody, or really nobody, realized that he could potentially be. And he starts putting on a show with various people, putting on a show that everybody starts being excited. And this is the first time Izuku felt like he was normal, like he was some normal guy, that he could do something that could make not only people happy, but also give himself notoriety. And honestly, this is the first time he's felt like this ever. The first time he's ever felt like he belonged somewhere, that he belonged in this place. And he realized that this right here, being a wrestler, is where he belongs truly. And in doing so, in making himself feel like this, in making himself realize this, well, this is when his quirk would start to arrive. Because one day, when he's around 13 years old, he's doing a match with one of his good buddies that he met on the wrestling scene. And as the crowd would get louder, the crowd would get, more and more excited, Izuku can feel this rush of energy. The normal fatigue he would feel is no longer there, but is to the extent of a different version of that said fatigue. He is like no longer tired. He feels way stronger. He feels way more active. And he starts doing things and starts making moves that the other wrestler can't even keep up with. The other wrestler's thinking, whoa, like, where did this all come from? Like, I've never seen you do these things at all. So Izuku pulls it back a little bit and starts slowing down. But the other wrestler, he tells him, no, don't slow down. Don't slow down. Let's put you over. Let's make sure that these people know that you're the real effing deal. And it starts to really unfold, where Izuku starts to go on an absolute spree, showing off some of the most amazing moves you could possibly see as the crowd would chant his name, and as the voices would get louder. Everything he does would have more impact, from flips off the rope to spine busters to anything, from DDTs and anything you can think of. Izuku Midoriya gives it all. Izuku Midoriya shows everything and everyone what he could really freaking do. And every movement is just a different level. Every time he lands a blow, the crowd would erupt into like a frenzy. And Izuku seemingly would get stronger, faster, better, more entertaining, everything. And eventually, the match would end with that beautiful 1, 2, 3, and Izuku Midoriya would have his name chanting all the way up the rafters, and everybody would now know the name of Izuku Midoriya. And everybody would know that he is the professional wrestler of Japan. And with all this happening, with everything going on, Izuku starts realizing, like, wow, like, this feels great, this feels amazing, and who cares about being a hero when I could do this, when I can make people happy, when I can make people feel alive. But then everything that he has created, all the moves, everything that he does, it starts to slow down more and more and more and more, because the idea of being a professional wrestler, I mean, to the people that are watching, they don't really find it that entertaining anymore. They believe that Izuku Midoriya, he should go out there and be a hero, save lives, and be the professional that he is. Bring pro wrestling to the hero circuit and do something that nobody else has really done. And Izuku hears this, and he hears this all the way until he's around 15 years old. And he realizes that this opportunity, whatever came and whatever showed up in front of him, this might be his chance, his true chance to get out there and be a hero. The hero he wanted to be when he was younger, but also the hero that everybody else would love to be since they were younger. Izuku Midoriya is given an opportunity, and he realizes that he should not waste it. And he doesn't. He gets his chance, and he refuses to let go of it. And, well, let's just say his kind of idea and his back and forth with himself about being a hero would come to a close when he would face off with a sludge villain. Yes, a villain that would come out of nowhere attacking him. Izuku would have the strength to legitimately avoid and also start beating on this kind of liquidy sludge villain. And you would think, oh, there's no chance he can hit him. But Izuku starts actually landing blows. It seems like he's able to actually get a hold of the creature that the sludge villain is, and eventually All Might would show up, punch the sludge villain, and obliterate it into little tiny bits. And Izuku would talk to All Might, asking him various questions and asking him, should he become a hero? Can he become a hero? And will he be able to? And let's just say it's pretty obvious that All Might basically gives him the go-ahead of, like, yeah, no, kid, like, you have all the capabilities in the world. You just have to figure out what exactly your powers are, what you can truly do, and what you are truly capable of doing. And that's when Izuku starts truly putting his best foot forward with kind of learning about as much as he possibly can, learning about kind of what his quirk does, because he is now a late bloomer from what his the quirk he got and stuff like that. And he starts learning that his quirk has a lot to do with just people being around him, people chanting for him, and really playing that persona. The more and more he kind of dives into that idea of entertainment, the better and better his quirk will get. The stronger and the more things will start to progress. And Izuku realizes that this is something he has to hold on to, something he needs to realize that he needs to basically hold on to as hard as possible. And he thanks All Might for the advice, thanks him for, whatever is going on. And Izuku starts training, starts pushing himself forward, and starts really scheming out so many different ideas on what he could possibly do as a hero, what he could possibly do in various different directions and various different ideas. And Izuku starts planning out his kind of costume, starts planning out his various moves and anything he can do, and also how he wants to approach being the hero or being a face, aka being the good guy. And that's something that Izuku wants to think about as well. But he needs to figure out also how he's going to pass this UA entrance exam. And when he heads into, after 10 months of training, that UA entrance exam, the written portion isn't too difficult. I mean, he studied or tried to study as much as possible. But the real thing is the practical. How is he going to do in the practical portion of this exam? Is he going to excel? Is he going to fail? Is he going to, be forced to slow down and, get pushed back or whatever? and he tries his absolute hardest to kind of push himself forward and also just get as much as he possibly can done in this exam. Having to destroy robots, it seems like such a difficult thing, but even Izuku doesn't understand his own kind of strength. And with the teachers above watching and commenting on various people, this in turn allows Izuku to kind of channel that type of commotion, even though it's not a lot, but that type of commotion into power, into strength, into ability, and he starts absolutely being a high flyer off the top of buildings, destroying robots with cross bodies and drop kicks and so on and so forth, even using, you know, various other techniques that he has learned to just punch his way through various robots and doing his absolute best. But the thing is when that 0-point robot shows up, he doesn't have much of a choice but to kind of run away, right? To take off, because at the end of the day, this is a pretty giant robot. This robot itself is ridiculously big and ridiculously, like, you know, powerful in its own right. And he doesn't have a way to just, you know, punch his way through it and obliterate it. And what he does do, though, is he grabs up a girl that is obviously trapped under rubble and does his best to save her, grabbing her and basically like running with her on his shoulders and just taking off as quick as possible, while obviously she is like telling him like be careful, blah blah blah, and Izuku is out of there as the 0-point robot would eventually turn off, being that the entrance exam is now officially over. And Izuku, well, it's all a waiting game now. He leaves, you know, yes, he does get some people, you know, thanking him and stuff like that. And, of course, the positive, affirmations and all that stuff definitely helps him get stronger and stronger, something that he holds near and dear to him. But it is not a ton, right? Everything that is in the moment makes him the strongest that he possibly can be. But for now, every little bit definitely helps as his strength continues to push up and up and up. And after some waiting, he finally gets a letter from UA telling him that he actually got into Class 1A, but he isn't the #1 student or anything like that. He is in the top 5, being the 4th best student in the entrance exam. He's happy about, very happy about, and very intrigued about, and he wonders who is the #1. And then when he gets there that day, he realizes that there's only one person that he knows would even have that #1 spot, and that has to be Bakugo. And that would all be confirmed when Aizawa would walk in, tell them all to shut up, and be ready for a quirk assessment test. And when he puts Bakugo on the front, like kind of the front of everybody, and tells them, let's see how the #1 student throws this ball as far as he can. And basically he does just that. Izuku is basically confirming in his head that Bakugo will always be the guy he needs to be, always be the guy that he'll be chasing. And Izuku now understands that this guy Bakugo, he's never been like an amazing person, and frankly, maybe he'll never be, but at least he's a hero, and at least he's, you know, somewhat tolerable to an extent. But Izuku knows that this guy Bakugo, I mean, he is something else, and he's something different. But an annoyance and somebody to push him forward, at least he can accept that to an extent. But with that said, he watches Bakugo throw the ball as far as he can, and Izuku would get an opportunity himself to do it as well. But he kind of tries to hype it all up, tries to walk up there, hype it all up. And Aizawa, let's just be honest, Aizawa doesn't like this. Honestly, he would get really upset and just annoyed by this. He'd be like, dude, like, shut up and just throw the ball. But Izuku would be trying to hype it up so that these other people would start, you know, getting a little rowdy, getting, you know, cheering a little bit, getting a little loud. But with Aizawa shutting it down, his strength is a little bit limited, and he's able to throw the ball pretty damn far. Don't get me wrong. He is of a pretty good stature. He's pretty damn strong already, but it doesn't go as far as Bakugo's. And this right here would piss him off. He'd be annoyed by this, and he would even tell Aizawa, like, he can throw the ball, even further if they all cheered him. They all cheered his name. They all did this and that. And Aizawa would tell him that he doesn't care. That what does he think this is? Some sort of wrestling match? Does he think this is some comedy skit? What does he think this is? Because this is real life. Lives are on the line, and they are there to save people. And Izuku just stops talking, realizing that Aizawa's head, wherever he's thinking, just won't understand the idea of professional wrestling, and won't understand the idea that this is a part of it. This is a part of him being a hero. The chanting, the cheering, everything. He is the perfect wrestler, but he also may just be the perfect hero, because when people start chanting his name, everything becomes so much easier. But Izuku tries his best throughout the rest of this quirk assessment, pushing himself, trying to get better, trying to get stronger, and everything and all of the above. And eventually, he would honestly do pretty well. Like, he wouldn't get anywhere near the bottom of the list. He's still a pretty freak of nature. Like, he's pretty strong. So him getting last place is definitely out of the conversation. Like, he's not going to get last place. There's just no way. But still, this entire kind of thing that happened with the quirk assessment and stuff like that definitely didn't have Aizawa on, a good side in terms of Izuku actually being on Aizawa's good side. And it's mostly because of the fact that Aizawa doesn't like the idea that some of these so-called heroes or students, they're a little bit more of what he can handle, right? They think they're better than everyone, and that's kind of the way he's looking at Izuku, at least for the moment. He's thinking, oh, this kid thinks he's just better than everyone, right? He thinks he's cooler, he thinks he's better, he thinks he's faster, he thinks he's stronger. He thinks that he doesn't need to be here, he doesn't need to be around us, blah, blah, blah. He can do what he wants. But that's not what Izuku really is all about. Izuku's trying to make the most of what he can do, make the most of what his capabilities are, and that's kind of where his head has always been. But at the same time, he is kind of looked at as a pseudo celebrity. People started actually realizing who he was, and Aizawa knows as well, being that he is a professional wrestler and he has been for the majority of his life. And the fact is, he has gained quite a bit of popularity as he got older, and that popularity he believes is getting to his head. But Izuku isn't actually trying to gain any more popularity by being here. He wants to just do the right thing. He wants to be a good person, and he wants to help as many people as he possibly can, and that's what he's doing. That's what he's trying to do. And the thing is, he's gonna have to somehow prove that to Aizawa, to make sure that, people don't just think he's just here for the sole purpose of, looking cool or being cool or, getting popularity and stuff like that. And Izuku would continue that idea and try to prove himself over and over again, especially when we go to the Heroes versus Villains training, where he takes on Bakugo once again, but this time around, it's in a different type of situation where he has to try and touch a bomb, right? Him being on the hero side with Ochako Araka makes it so that they have to stop a bomb, and they have 5 minutes to do so. And the main conflict that occurs is him facing off with Bakugo. He takes on Bakugo, and they go head first at each other, and the clash is pretty memorable, especially for everyone that's watching. But the main goal is to capture the bomb, and Izuku is trying his best to put him and also Ochako in a space where they could actually, get to the bomb and stuff like that. But Bakugo is relentless, so Izuku has to really focus his attention on Bakugo. And as he's doing this, as he's fighting Bakugo, they're fighting at a pretty decent pace and pretty even in terms of their strength, at least for now, especially when everybody is watching. Everybody starts talking about Izuku, saying, wow, this is really cool, like the way he fights, all this, and yada, 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 talking about just everything that Izuku is doing. And as this is happening, Izuku begins to get into that flow state once again, getting stronger, getting faster, getting more capable. Every single thing you can think of, that is what's happening with Izuku. Izuku starts getting way better, like way better than Bakugo. And as he does get way better than Bakugo, we then see that Izuku is able to knock him out pretty quickly, getting him on the ground, and then doing something he didn't know he could do. Something takes over him, and it makes him think he needs to pin him, right? 1, 2, 3. That's what he needs to do. And as he does this, as he pins him, and as he puts his shoulders on the ground, in his head, he can hear 1, 2, 3. And out of nowhere, Bakugo would be stuck in the ground, unable to move at all. He's been pinned, essentially losing the fight, and unable to move. And this would shock Izuku, thinking, wow, I didn't know I could even do that, right? I didn't even know that was a thing. And it's making him realize that growing up in a pro wrestling environment has changed so much about him and has granted him a quirk that is so different than anything he's ever thought of in the first place. And as this happens, as this occurs, he heads upstairs, and eventually they would capture the bomb, him and Ochako together, defeating Tenya Ida, and All Might would give him all the flowers in the world for his capabilities. And after giving him his flowers, saying that they did good, obviously the other students would go ahead and do theirs as well, or their training session as well. And All Might, after class, would make it known. Like, he would want to go out and he would tell Aizawa that this kid has all the potential in the world. You may not like the way he acts, the way he approaches things, but it's not because he's not taking things seriously. He's still figuring out his own powers, his own quirk, and his own capabilities. So you got to give him a chance. Got to give him a fair kind of, chance at really putting himself out there and really building himself up. And Aizawa says, like, he's always going to give the kid a chance. He doesn't have to like the way he approaches things, and he doesn't have to agree with the way he approaches things. And this is exactly what's the truth about, Izuku and stuff like that. But of course, Aizawa's gonna give him that chance no matter what. I mean, he treats everybody for the most part equally, but he's gonna give him a hard time about that. Like, he's not gonna like a kid that seeks attention, even if it's beneficial for the powers that he holds. Like, that's stupid. In which Aizawa obviously would try to keep the kid in line for the most part, but this would eventually lead us to the USJ, the very next kind of training facility or rescue training facility that these students are going to work with, train with, and get a hold of. Now, with that all being said, they do have quite a bit to do and quite a bit to learn, but all that learning would come to a stop when the League of Villains would come surging in. The League of Villains would overrun the entirety of the place, so much so that Izuku and a couple others would be sent to a specific location, being that he is sent to a ship or like a cruise of some sort in the middle of a lake, or a boat of some sort in the middle of a lake. And being that they are stuck there, like literally stuck there, they have to figure out what they got to do, especially with the villains that are beneath them. And which Izuku kind of tries to think about various ways to approach things and how they want to do this. But Izuku kind of eventually comes to the conclusion that it might be best if they just try their best to leap across the area and then kind of, hope that they can reach the edge of it and get out of here. Now, this is something that they're not sure if they can do, and even Asui is bringing this up, like, are you sure we're going to be able to do that? In which Izuku says, no, like, not at all. I'm not sure at all about it, but if you guys, bring positive energy towards me, like legitimately cheer me on and stuff, I might be able to clear this gap no matter what. In which they're like, that's the most weird thing I've ever heard in my life, but if it's going to get us out of here and not dead, we should probably try it. Which that's exactly what they do. They start chanting his name, stuff like that, and eventually he actually gets enough strength to where they can clear enough area where him, Asui, and Mineta are able to clear the entirety of the water so they can actually get out and go to somewhat safety. But the thing is, Izuku is currently looking at and watching as Aizawa is getting attacked, and he's clashing and fighting, and eventually he defeats all these villains, but he then has a Nomu, a giant creature, already attacking him once again. And Izuku, all he can think about is how is he going to help? That he should help. That he should somehow help. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know if he can actually truly do something. He doesn't know if he can protect anybody, help anyone, or really do a single thing about this giant creature. But he thinks about something. And he looks at Asui and Mineta, and he rushes them up the stairs. And he tells them That's anybody who's safe, anybody who's at a good distance, they need to start cheering, chanting, and doing anything they possibly can in the favor of him. Chanting his name, shouting for him, saying that it's awesome, it's this, it's that. Any chance they can think of, they need to do it, and he's being dead serious. In which Asui nods her head and says, she got it. She 100% she understands. She'll get the job done. She runs over there with Mineta, and as this begins to happen, as all the students are confused, like, what the hell are you talking about? We're not going to do that. That's so stupid. Eventually, they realize that it might have a little bit of method to the madness, and they start chanting Izuku's name. And as Aizawa was about to get square punched in the face by the Nomu, Izuku would jump out of nowhere, blocking the damage, blocking the attack, and, well, the Nomu would be in shock, or at least the villains would be in shock at the fact that the Nomu didn't even put a scratch on Izuku, at least not yet. Izuku starts going blow for blow with this Nomu, going back and forth, and Izuku brings out all the stops. He tries everything from your DDTs to suplexes to anything, your spine busters, anything that you could possibly think of. He's trying everything. He even goes up on top of a large area and jumps off of it with a swanton bomb. He's putting his body on the line, and he's doing everything in his possible strength to take this thing down, take this monstrosity down, and he wants to do it so that nobody else has to worry. Nobody else can be in the fray, and nobody else can get hurt. And Izuku, I mean, he is taking it to this Nomu, and he's stalling him out as much as possible, even leading to Aizawa being able to kind of fend off for himself, helping with Shigaraki and Kurogiri, so that when the arrival of All Might happens, Izuku and All Might team up, so they go head-to-head as a duo, as a tag team against the Nomu, making even All Might stronger in this sense, and they both take down the Nomu a lot quicker than normal, and with the help of Aizawa and some other students, Shigaraki would also be taken down. In a last-ditch effort, though, Kurogiri tries to get everybody out of there, the Nomu, Shigaraki, and himself, but he's unable to do so, with Bakugo following up quickly, and it seems like the chants themselves are making things a lot more difficult to even handle, a lot more difficult to even fathom. And it's weird because he doesn't understand why. He doesn't understand why his powers are being blocked in a weird way. His strengths, his weaknesses, everything is being unveiled. And it seems like the chants, everybody who's cheering on Izuku, everybody's cheering on the entirety of this fight, it seems to be affecting him, and it seems to be changing the feats of the battlefield. And that's exactly what Izuku realizes, or when he realizes that everything is different now. That Izuku Midoriya, he's no longer a pro wrestler. Well, he is a pro wrestler, but he's no longer just a pro wrestler. He is on his way to being a pro hero. And with one final attack, one final swanton, one final blow, he puts the Nomu in a pin, and he counts, and he can hear the crowd count as well. 1, 2, 3, and the Nomu is captured entirely, unable to move, and he does the same for Shigaraki and Kurogiri and those as well. Pins all galore, and they are captured, unable to move, and as heroes come in surging, and heroes come in capturing everybody, it seems like everybody is swooped up, and the League of Villains are put to rest, at least for the moment. Because we know that it's never going to end as long as they're still kind of focused and ready and trying to push to that next step. And at the end of the day, Shigaraki makes it very clear that even though he'll be behind bars, it doesn't mean that it's over just yet. And he refuses to give up that easily. In which, of course, the heroes take him away, and they're like, yeah. Well, that's what every freaking villain says, whatever you got to say. But as this is being told, as is being said, All For One would show his face. Portals would open up beneath Shigaraki and Kurogiri, dropping him underneath. The heroes would try to stop this, but the portals would close, and All For One would show his face, telling them that they will be next. That soon, everything in this world, everything from Japan and on, will be his to conquer. And the villains, they will prevail. And he tells them all that this little road bump means nothing because he's already foreseen it all. Because that right there is not a prediction, it's a spoiler, in which everybody would be in shock to see All For One standing in front of them, but he would leave. All the other villains would be captured, but Shigaraki and Kurogiri would be with All For One, and it seems like that is not the last of them they will be seeing, but Izuku feels that he is beyond ready for another encounter with them, and there's something about the feeling of the cheering people, the fans alike, that makes his blood pump and it makes him feel like he's on top of the world, like he can jump from a giant cage and survive. But all he's thinking about is that the next time he sees those people, he's going to shut them down for good. But as a student of UA, he has a lot to worry about, and that also includes the eventual UA Sports Festival that he's going to get into, but that is for the next part, which will most likely be the final part. I'll probably just do a longer part for that last part. Izuku Midoriya's next steps to that glorious person he wants to be in terms of being a hero is, well, the UA Sports Festival. And the UA Sports Festival is a time that he can grow to unimaginable heights. Unimaginable heights. One thing Izuku knows and really, really understands is that a big audience is something he thrives off of. And he's only kind of thrived off of, decently sized audiences, up to I would say maybe at max a couple thousand. But this is far greater than that. Far, far greater than that. And frankly, it makes all of the other kind of places, the other matches, and all this other stuff that he's done in the past look like child's play. Because the UA Sports Festival may start with something simple like the Cavalry Battle, with everybody cheering, chanting, and raving. And as Izuku Midoriya would obviously embrace all of that and just sprint through this entire place as quick as possible, everybody starts realizing quickly that he is somebody to cheer for. And Izuku Midoriya is someone that they can enjoy and love and put their passion right onto. And when in doing so, and as the passionate fans start screaming his name, he gets so much faster, so much better, and so much quicker. And Izuku Midoriya starts pushing the pace throughout the entirety of the obstacle course race, and he outpaces every last person that is there, making it honestly seem like child's play and make everybody think that, whoa, this guy might just be levels above everyone else. And as he soaks it all in, as he puts his arms up in the air and embraces all of the chanting, everybody realizes quickly that they are looking at potentially the next best hero. And, well, it doesn't stop there, because Izuku is basically put in a scenario where he has a 10 million point band in the Cavalry Battle, where if they take his band, they can instantly go on to the next round. But it goes for the same for Izuku, where if he keeps this band, he goes straight forward to that next round as well, and he's focused on doing just that. And he makes it look easy. Very, very easy. I mean, he makes it look simple. He has the team of, it's him, Ochako Uraka, Tokiyami, and Meihatsume. But when people start getting near him and near them, he trips them, folds them, pushes them away. I mean, it's easy for him to keep distance and easy for him to control everything, every aspect and every little bit. And people keep chanting the name of him, Izuku Midoriya, over and over and over again. And eventually, they would get to those 1-versus-1 battles. The battles that would set the tone of everything. Because Izuku would stand on the stage, face to face with a brand new opponent. Someone he doesn't even know, but all he knows is he needs to put on a show. And that show is now. And this guy begins to talk, begins to yap, and begins to question Izuku. And Izuku finds this to be, let's just say, interesting. He finds it to be very interesting. So he goes to respond, and this would be a fatal error because Izuku's response would lead to him getting mind controlled and him beginning to walk towards that ledge. But as Izuku can feel this, and as the chants for him continue, and as they call to Izuku, telling him almost not to give up, as they stomp their feet louder and louder and louder, he would break free and he would turn over and he would immediately jump up and grab the neck of Hitoshi Shinso, and he would slam on the ground using a move he's seen from America known as the RKO. And as he does this, as Hitoshi Shinso would hit the ground knocked out, he would be delivered or deemed the winner, and everybody would continue chanting. And the more and more that happens, the more and more everybody around is realizing that the distance in strength, power, and just chance of winning gets lower and lower as Izuku's grows higher and higher and higher. And it doesn't matter. He may face off with some people that can control elements themselves, facing off with Todoroki, who can control ice and fire, which obviously he's only using ice right now. But Izuku's strength is off the charts. He smashes through the ice, breaking, shattering, and closing the distance so easily. And he can do things at a very high level, to the point where no one seems to be an equal to Izuku, not even close. Defeating Todoroki, throwing him over, and just really soaking in all of the glory of what's going on, all of the glory of what's happening. And this would eventually lead to Izuku facing off with, well, the one and only Tenya Ida, in which he would embarrass him, tripping him, putting him on the ground, and then pinning him. 1, 2, 3, and he would be stuck on the ground, unable to move, and everybody would look at him and be like, wow, that's insane. Like, he is stuck there. He made him look like a joke. He made it look easy. And that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what Izuku Midoriya did. He made it look easy. And he can just continue adding to his repertoire as he faces off with someone like Bakugo. And Bakugo is shown exactly the level he's at. And that level isn't touching Izuku. But All Might is watching currently, and all he can think about is the fact that this kid is stronger than everybody on the field. Everybody here, stronger, faster, better, and it's insane. And he doesn't understand the full capabilities of his quirk, but he does know is that the kid he's a good kid, right? And he has all these capabilities, and maybe, just maybe, he is the perfect person to take on the mantle of All Might, right? Take on One For All. And that's a conversation he's thinking about in his own head, and wonders, maybe Izuku Midoriya is that perfect person for the job. Maybe he should be granted that opportunity. And this is a conversation after the UA Sports Festival, and after Izuku is deemed the winner. It is a conversation that is definitely had. A conversation between Izuku and All Might. And they would talk about, basically upping the level that Izuku is at, upping the skill, upping the power that he can maintain. But Izuku would eventually, after, a lot of a back and forth, would decline the offer of One For All. Decline the offer of being granted a power from All Might. And he promises All Might that none of this, the idea of One For All, none of it comes out of his mouth ever again. And he tells them just flat out, like, don't worry, your secret is safe with me, and there's nothing that's going to change, right? Like, he's flat out telling them, like, you don't gotta worry. Yes, you offered me this, and yes, this is important, but I'm not going to sit here and go blab about it somewhere else. I'm not going to bring it up somewhere else. I'm not going to do any of that because I respect you too much, and I idolize you way too much to do anything that would be that disrespectful. And of course, that would be greatly appreciated by All Might. And All Might would tell him that he's going to be a fantastic hero no matter what. And Izuku believes that to be so as well. And Izuku has many different opportunities in terms of internships and a lot of different people he could definitely choose from. But eventually he actually would choose the same person that All Might would train with or was mentored by a long time ago, being that he was offered Gran Torino via All Might, because he just believed that even if he didn't take on One for All, that he should be given the opportunity to train with somebody like Gran Torino, someone of that stature, and that's exactly what he's going to do. And for that little time he trains with him, he learns how to control his own strength, his own power, and really up the ante in terms of that high flying capabilities, and he knows to not lean too heavily into his just bruiser-esque powerhouse type of kind of style, you could say. And Izuku really takes this to heart, takes every criticism, takes every little bit from Gran Torino, and he does this because in the wrestling scene, it was all about learning. He was all about figuring things out, all about trying to get better. And it's the same premise. It's the same exact premise that he goes through. So he takes every word from Gran Torino straight to his heart, and he makes sure that he gets everything to perfection. And eventually, he would have to try and test out all of those things that he's been working on, because he would stumble across one of his friends, one of his buddies, and one of his classmates, someone, well, by the name of Tenya Ida. And Tenya Ida, well, he is about to be killed by the hero killer. And the hero killer needs to be stopped now. And Izuku Midoriya would stand right in front of him and tell him that he's not going to hurt anyone else ever again, and that he's going to stop everything that he's been trying to do, and he's going to stop it from all happening. And let's just say the hero killer laughs at Izuku, thinks it's a joke, but when they start fighting, he realizes quickly it's not a joke, because Izuku starts flying, or basically flinging himself around the area, tackling and spearing and suplexing the hero killer. And the hero killer tries to cut him, tries to slow him down, and tries to do something, but it seems as if even Izuku sees it all. It's like he is rampaging to the point where he can't even be touched, and it's shocking, like absolutely shocking. But eventually Izuku would feel as if he had the upper hand so much that it was time for the pin to put the man down. And he would end it off with one final swanton from the top of the building, and he would pin him. 1, 2, 3. But as the 3 count would ring off in his own head, he would get cut one time, and he would lick, or Stain would lick the blood of Izuku, and he would go completely paralyzed. But who would be completely paralyzed as well? Well, that would be Stain, who just got pinned on a 3 count and is stuck on the ground beneath him. So him, or Izuku, and Stain lay there completely stuck in place, at least until the other heroes arrive. And that would include Endeavor showing up, taking the credit for what occurred, but that's mostly because the kids, well, they would get into some serious trouble if they didn't have the credit taken by an actual pro hero. And after this is all said and done, they would go to the hospital, and they would be told a couple things like, hey, you can't be doing that, blah blah blah, all that stuff. And Izuku would tell Tenya that if he wants revenge, if he wanted that, right, he wanted it back in blood, then he better figure out how to get the job done better than that. He was an idiot, a really stupid idiot, because guess what he did? He didn't think about what was happening. He didn't think about what was going to happen. He just went. He just went to try to get the job done, and nobody with a clouded mind ever gets the job done. And he tells him that next time he wants revenge, maybe do better and actually plan your damn revenge instead of just running in like a damn idiot. in which Izuku would be pretty damn harsh about it. Like, he was pretty damn harsh about every word he could possibly say, but he knows it needs to be that way because Tenya, he's a good guy, he's a good kid, but he knows that he can't be doing stupid stuff like that because things could end really badly really fast. But before you know it, this would send them to their final exams, and their final exams would include a practical and a written portion. Obviously, they study for the written portion, but the practical you cannot be ready for no matter what. And that is definitely because the practical is no robots. It's not a bunch of robots and a bunch of metal-like beings. No. It is actually other heroes. And this right here is a pretty interesting thing to deal with, because Izuku and Bakugo have to take on legitimately the greatest hero alive in All Might himself. But Izuku is up for the challenge, and he tells Bakugo that they just have to get along for a little bit. You know, stand side by side, be a duo, be tag team partners. And he tells him, how about this? We could even take turns, you know, going back and forth and beating up on All Might and trying to defeat him. Just make sure to tag in and tag out. And he tells Bakugo this, and he believes that, and has really been able to tell that his power does change and honestly grows, and the other person as well, when they do this. In which, of course, Izuku would obviously lead, or it would obviously lead them to taking on All Might, and Bakugo kind of taking that first chance. Bakugo would actually do pretty decent. Now, he wouldn't beat All Might or anything like that, but he would do pretty decent. But eventually he would be pushed to the edge to where he had to tag in Izuku, and Izuku would come in and he would go crazy. I mean, Izuku's power would be amplified from the idea of actually utilizing a tag team. But on top of that, he would be already have been granted so much more power than before. Like, he was way stronger than before. And he starts suplexing All Might. Suplex after suplex, taking him down to suplex absolute city, And he's going crazy at this point. And even everybody around that is watching, they're cheering, they're chanting, and they're giving everything they can to basically allow Izuku to gain even more strength and power. But with one final tag team move, they are able to end the fight, as Bakugo would land explosions and so much more, and Izuku would tell him to pin All Might and end the fight for good. And that's exactly what he would do. Pin All Might, and he would be stuck in the ground, and they would be deemed the winners. And Izuku and Bakugo, just for that little moment, would actually share a pretty good, damn, maybe we are pretty good duo. Maybe we are we can really be something here. It's as a duo and as a little tag team or whatever. And of course, they kind of shrug this off and shake it off. But at the same time, they can tell that, hey, maybe if we get along a little better, we really can be some of the better heroes to live. And that right there is 100% the idea, right? It's 100% a possibility in that regard. Now, as Izuku and Bakugo would come to that conclusion, obviously they would be allowed to go to the forest training camp. And the forest training camp would offer a ton of training, a ton of progression for Izuku, and so many more. But another thing that happens is, a villain invasion. The League of Villains seemed to not be done, and they would invade the forest training camp in hopes to actually capture one person, to capture somebody they believe, can truly help them and change everything. And that is Izuku Midoriya. After a long battle throughout the forest, and after even taking on a giant monster of a person by the name of Muscular, taking him on full-fledged, no holds bars, it seems like Izuku would go head to head to the point where, yes, he defeats Muscular, but he's extremely tired, exhausted, and he is taken away before you know it by Shigaraki and the League of Villains. And they tell him flat out that it's time for him to be who he's supposed to be. It is time for him to become the villain. In which Izuku's like, what are you talking about? What is going on in that head of yours that you would think that I would ever become the villain? In which this is when All For One would show his face. All For One would show his face and tell Izuku that he's going to become the villain, and he has no choice in it at all, because that All For One is the reason why he's even standing here in the first place, the reason why the people cheer, and the reason why he feels all that power build up when he hears his name and the lights are bright, and when he's jumping off that top rope. He's the reason why he feels even better than he has ever had before. In which this would shock Izuku, would be like, what are you talking about? Are you insane? You're an idiot. You're an idiot if you think you had anything to do with anything. But All For One would admit that he was quirkless, that Izuku Midoriya was quirkless. And really, he still is. But All For One gave him something, a power of something, a power that allowed him to channel something that he was so fond over, to channel the art of pro wrestling, so much so that he was granted abilities that are beyond anything imaginable. But another thing that he needs to understand is that, well, the big boss always has the final say. And whatever the big boss says, well, the big boss gets. And as he says this, Izuku's in shock, thinking, what are you talking about? But All For One would tell him, or basically tell him straight up, that he thinks it's time for the heel turn of Izuku Midoriya. And when he hears this, hears the word heel, as something snaps and something changes in the mind of Izuku Midoriya. And he doesn't know what is going on and what is flooding through his brain. But All For One tells him that a choice is to be made. And that choice, it needs to come quickly, because he can have everything he ever wanted. Everything and more. But he just needs one last decision. Izuku is released by the League of Villains, sent off, and just a day later, an attack would ensue. An attack of All For One. An attack of the League of Villains. And Izuku Midoriya would stand there, watching the TV, as All Might would go head to head with All For One. Go head to head and watch everything unfold. And as everything's unfolding, as All For One stands there mocking, well, All Might, Izuku goes out there to help. Stands next to All Might. Stands there with pride in every fist, and stands there knowing he can help. He approaches All For One, and as he does, he would look at All For One and then turn toward All Might briefly and hit him with an RKO. And as he does, and as All For One's body would hit the ground, and as Izuku would point toward All For One and also point toward, well, All Might, he would tell All For One that if he wants the pin, if he wants the defeat, he can take it. But All For One shakes his head and says that there's more ways in defeat than just a pin. And Izuku Midoriya would immediately put All Might in a headlock, and as he does, he would start cranking, and eventually All Might would pass out cold entirely, and he would be defeated right then and there, unable to move. And All For One would grab All Might and take him away, and he would tell right into the screen, right into the cameras, that this is where things change, that this world always has looked at heroes as entertainment, has always looked at everything as entertainment, and it wasn't always strictly real. Now, what they need to understand is, just like professional wrestling, there might be predetermined outcomes from time to time, but let's be completely honest, it is real. And as he speaks these words, it seems like his plan is unfolding. His plan is coming to its absolute climax, its peak, and All For One is making it all happen right in front of them as Izuku walks side by side with All For One, and he made a choice. And All For One last thing, and he would say, he would look back toward the camera and he would give it a wave, and he would tell them that soon everything will be theirs. Soon everyone will bow down to them. And soon everyone will understand their place. And they should really do one thing, and that is acknowledge him. And as he says this, he would tell them that they don't have many choices, and truly eventually everything will be inevitable. And that is not a prediction, it is a spoiler. And as that ensues, they would walk through a portal together, Izuku and All For One, and everybody would be in shock. This can't be happening. What is going on? And, well, just flat out, it's determined that Izuku is under some sort of mind control. Not that simple, at least, but to an extent, mind control. Believing that what he's doing is all a part of the script, all a part of what needs to happen. But a lot of people at UA, they wonder, and a lot of people in the hero world wonder, does the good guy always win? Will the script eventually change? Or will the bad guy reign supreme on top forever? And Izuku Midoriya would be at the forefront of everything with All For One. Even so much so that he helps All For One, Shigaraki, and many others continue building up their own power, their own strength, their own ability. And then eventually, well, let's just say that Izuku would show himself once again in front of countless people, countless number of people, and he would tell them that soon All For One will arrive, and soon you all will acknowledge us, acknowledge him, and everybody will understand exactly their place. And as all this is happening, as everybody hears this, boos would rain out. Everybody would chant everything, all these negative chants like "you suck" and like "you can't wrestle" and all these things. But it's only making it worse. These chants allow Izuku to seep deeper and deeper into his heel run, and deeper into being the villain that All For One wanted so badly. Because guess what? This hero world, well, to an extent, it's a little bit fake. So he thought, what's the best way to make the perfect person, the perfect dog that would be loyal, and the perfect dog that could truly exceed all expectations? And that is to make things a little bit fake. Make things a little bit, you could say, scripted. And Izuku Midoriya is exactly that. And soon, All For One and an entire army, including Shigaraki, who has advanced in his own powers and skills, and Izuku in himself has literally advanced countless times. Because guess what? The boos make things so much worse. And, well, let's just say, in a war that is eventual, in a war that the heroes have really no say in, and in a war that the heroes really have no chance in, it seems like they have one last ditch effort. One last ditch effort. And as everybody can hear, as speakers would be placed up, and as countless numbers of people in Japan would start chanting. They would start chanting the name of Izuku Midoriya. They chant it over and over. And they start saying, "Thank you, Izuku," over and over. And then soon they continue those chants. They continue various chants. And they even continue chants of "come back." Chants that are "we miss you." All these chants continue to ensue. And Izuku stands there, face crinkled up just a little bit, kind of annoyed, frustrated. But then his eyes would start going back to normal. His face would start going back to normal. These chants would grow louder, more and more and more. And eventually, Izuku would stand there, right next to All For One, right next to Shigaraki, and he would have a choice to make, a choice that he stands there besides them and allows this to unfold, or a choice, well, to do something different, do something greater. Maybe, just maybe, sway the side back to theirs, back to their opportunity. And well, Izuku would look to his right and he would see a metal chair sitting there, a metal chair on the ground, and he would grab it and he would put that steel chair to the back of All For One and Shigaraki with a force that nobody could imagine, so much so that the entire place, like this entire city, feels the ripples of that chair smacking against both of them, and they would both collapse to the ground, because this is something they couldn't expect. They couldn't expect another turn, a turn all because of the chanting fans. The chanting fans no longer hated him. The chanting fans understood what was happening, and the chanting people, the people of Japan, understood what needed to be said. And Izuku surprises both All For One and Shigaraki and ensues in the basically collapse of the entire war and the side of All For One. And with their cockiness, with their reassurance of what was going to happen and how they were going to win, they didn't check every box. Shigaraki didn't have every power he needed, and none of them were anywhere near invincible, anywhere near kind of perfect or untouchable. And eventually, they would really realize that they made a grave error, because if they just took the extra steps, it wouldn't have mattered that Izuku Midoriya turned right back into a face because of those chanting fans. It wouldn't have mattered at all. But now they can only think about that script, think about those odds, and think about what happened, especially think about those things all behind bars. And Izuku Midoriya, well, he may be put behind bars for a little bit and forced to rehabilitate, but soon he would be back doing exactly what he's always wanted to do, and that is wrestle. And that's exactly where Izuku Midoriya's head is headed, and exactly where his entire want for just anything is headed as well. But that is the end of this story. The story of what if Deku was a pro wrestler. And if you enjoyed, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. Yeah, I know it's a little different of a story. I was like, you know what? Let's go in this direction. I was kind of debating with how I wanted to do it. I was like, I'm going to do it this way just to mess around and have a good time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, though, nonetheless. And, yeah, that's all I really got to say. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.